Welcome to Oddball. I'm Charlotte Wilder. That's Amin Elhassan, and everybody knows where we are starting today. Amin, we're going to talk about the Celtics and the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Oh yeah. What, Celtics and Cavs, what, did they play something? What happened?
Yeah, well, you might say that there was a monumental regular season game in November last night. The Celtics handed the Cavs their first loss of the season. It was 120-117. The Celtics are now 12-3, and the Cleveland Cavaliers are no longer 15-0. The Celtics broke their undefeated streak to start the season. They're 15-1, and both teams are now 1-1 in pool play for the NBA Cup, because it was an NBA Cup game too. I mean, I kept forgetting that.
Did you? That floor didn't give you reminders at all times?
No, sorry. Leading up to the game. And then I saw it and I was like, oh, now I definitely can't
blinded
forget.
By that green.
So here's something. I'm going to sound like the worst Boston fan in the world. Bear with me for a second.
So a Boston fan. Got it.
Okay. After the game, I felt like the whole internet was coming up with reasons that the Celtics didn't deserve to win that game. Is this team specific? Do people just hate Boston, or is it because they had a 20-point lead and then they blew it and Darius Garland shot very poorly for the Cavs?
Yeah, I mean, sure, Darius Garland shot poorly, and had he not shot poorly, maybe they would have won, but maybe they wouldn't have won either. You don't know what the trade-off is in that. I do think kind of like for a team that was up 20 and almost, had to escape by the skin of their teeth, the Celtics post-game seemed incredibly cocky, specifically Derek White and Jason Tatum. But my guess is most people don't like the Celtics because of Joe Mazzulla, crazy Joe Mazzulla, who has a bit of a likability problem that stems from him kind of being like, I don't know, like a little bit like I'm smarter than everybody, the way he kind of talks down on everybody. And I think that kind of ties into why people don't really like the Celtics.
Yeah, it's also just Boston, which as a Boston fan, I also do understand. Do you think, we talked about Garland shooting, but what about the defenders who were out? Like Wade, Max Strus, Karis LeVert, Okoro. Would they have won with better wing defenders?
Well, I mean, look, on the one hand, it certainly would help definitely to have those guys. Anytime you have your guys, it's better than not having your guys. But the Celtics won that game because they blew the doors off by the three-point shooting in the first three quarters, right? Which is, we saw this in person, Charlotte, opening night, right? Against the Knicks, a team that wasn't hurting for their wing defenders, OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges. These guys are great defensive players. But when this team shoots like this, there's not much you can do. You just have to hope it passes, and you got to keep playing your game. The other part is, we heard Coach Atkinson say in the postgame, these guys approached it with playoff level physicality and force, and we didn't. We came with regular season force and physicality in the first half. So even if those guys had been available, Strus and LeVert and Dean Wade, there's no guarantee that they would have brought that energy that the rest of the team didn't. Maybe they would have came in and still had the same sort of outcome. Right.
So in terms of the Celtics defense, is that the reason that Garland shot 3 for 21 from the field? Is there anything the Celtics were doing specifically that caught this Cavs team that has just been on fire off guard?
Yeah, I think no. My guess is no. When I look at Darius Garland, the season he's been having, he's been amazing. He up until last night, the percentages dropped, but he was 50, 40, 90. On the year, with obviously great production. You have an off night sometimes, right? And 0 for 6 from 3. The thing I always tell people is 3-point defense is not the making someone miss threes. It's actually not letting them shoot threes at all. And so when I see Darius Garland go 0 for 6 from 3, that's more of Darius Garland missed a bunch of shots, much in the same way that the Celtics shooting the way they did through 3 quarters and then the fourth quarter missing them wasn't because the Cavs defense locked down on 3-point shooters. It was because the Celtics started to come back to reality in terms of 3-point shooting. And so this is all normal. This is all regular. And on another night, maybe the Celtics don't shoot as well. Maybe Darius Garland hits a couple more threes and the outcome is different, but that's why we play the games.
Right. Well, you mentioned Joe Mazzulla and his likability problem. He's he's He loves MMA. He shows his team videos of killer whales fighting each other. And Tatum probably made him really proud because he drew blood from Donovan Mitchell in the final seconds of that game. I was like, did Donovan Mitchell lose a tooth? What is going on? So clearly Tatum took Maz's advice here. I mean,
let me just say right now, that shot that they showed us during the telecast of Donovan Mitchell grinning like that, I guess showing his teeth to the trainer, it reminds me of every Looney Tunes cartoon when someone gets hit by a piano and then they smile and all their teeth are just piano keys, right? Like that's exactly, because it was like this weird dazed look in his eye as he was smiling. I hope you're okay, Donovan, but it just made me laugh. But yeah,
it's like Tweety birds around his head.
Yeah. It looked like a cartoon. It looked like Tom and Jerry again getting hit by a piano and then smiling, and then all his teeth are piano keys just kind of dangling.
So hear me out, Amin. Thinking of Joe Mazzulla, he is clearly out there, but whatever he's doing is working. And I was thinking, who's another coach who's been known for his sayings? Like all of these crazy things that Joe Mazzulla says then take off and go viral. And I thought of Phil Jackson. If the internet had been around for Phil Jackson and the Bulls, like those quotes also would have gone viral. I feel like Mazzulla is the Wario to Phil Jackson's Mario. Yep. If you'll bear with me. So can you just do something for me?
Well, I just want to point out, you're right, because both of these guys have this like weird kind of like, oh, I'm such an esoteric level higher than you are in terms of thinking about the game. Phil Jackson will also famously show his team clips of things that had nothing to do with basketball. We'll give them books about things that had nothing to do with basketball, and then they were supposed to relate it back to basketball. So there's a lot of kook in both of them.
Yeah, and Mazzulla is just like a hardo version of that. So let's do this. You read this Phil Jackson quote that I've pulled up, and then I'll read a corresponding Mazzulla one.
All right. Winning is important to me, but what brings me real joy is the experience of being fully engaged in whatever I'm doing.
Okay, and here's Joe Mazzulla. We're either going to win or we're not. And 40 years from now, none of you are invited to my funeral. See,
it's like it's a less polished Phil Jackson.
Yeah,
like,
so do another one.
I wonder what Phil Jackson's quotes were like his first couple of years versus like the ones that we got from like the end of the dynasty. All right, here's another one. Wisdom is always an overmatch for strength.
Okay, Mazzulla. The animal kingdom is the most pure form of hierarchy and role definition that there is.
You don't have enough of a dazed look in your eyes when you say this. You got to.
Sorry, let me make my eyes wider.
A disassociation. Okay. There you go.
You do another one.
Okay. Oh, I thought you were going to do another one. All right.
No.
If you meet the Buddha in the lane, feed him the ball.
This is my favorite juxtaposition. Okay, ready? Joe Mazzulla. People are going to say the target is on our back, but I hope it's right on our forehead and between our eyes. I hope I can see the red dot. So, I mean, I just wanted to prove to you that Phil's quotes, at least the ones we've pulled here, I don't know what his earliest ones were, they would be on the wall of a high school gym or like LinkedIn. Like people would share these on LinkedIn. Mazzulla's are like on the wall of a training facility for assassins. They're like in Eastern Europe for the Bourne Identity. This guy is trying really hard.
Assassins? Maybe not. Maybe not.
Maybe
right. Some cross-eyed assassins. I want to see the red dot between my eyes. Like, that'd be the worst assassins ever. They're like, give me a mirror, damn it. No,
assassins, they are assassins who won a championship, I will say.
Look, Phil Jackson's ones, not only would they be on LinkedIn, people's LinkedIn and all the Instagram inspirational quotes and all that stuff, but also if you go to like a defensive driving class, they'll have pictures on the wall of like an eagle soaring and then a Phil Jackson quote under it. Like mountains and valleys and ravines and rivers and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. You get it. Great. Speaking of Phil Jackson, let's move on to the Lakers. Dalton Knecht last night was out of his mind. I mean, he had 37 points, including 9 of 12 from 3. Wow, he had 9 threes, which ties the rookie record. The Lakers beat the Jazz 124-118. Knecht, since becoming a starter in his last 3 games, is 26 points per game. He's shooting 61.5% from 3. So I feel like in light of this, we've seen some people bemoan the rise of threes in the league. For some reason, the reaction to this incredible performance, which I was just like, I thought it was electric. I loved it so much, was like, threes are ruining the game. How can you not be excited seeing, like, why would people say that?
Well, first of all, it's not people. Well, I mean, there are people, but mainly Nick Wright, that thief. He came up with, well, he's stolen some stuff from me and he knows what he stole. But
oh, wow.
On this one, he didn't steal this one from me because I patently disagree. This idea that the threes are ruining the game. Look, the reality is this. 3-point shooting, particularly 3-point shooting by complementary players, spaces the floor. It makes defenders have to guard out 23 feet, 9 inches. And that space allows our star players to meddle around the middle range and get to the rim and do all the amazing things that we like to see. Anthony Davis, LeBron James benefit greatly from Dalton Knecht hitting all those threes. Whereas in the past, guys like that would sit around in the mid-range and clog everything up, and we'd have nothing. People love to romanticize the past, right? Mm-hmm. Like I remember Shaq and Kobe. Like, you remember Shaq and Kobe moments. You don't remember those games, though. Those games were MMA with a ball, basically. It was a lot of wrestling. It was a lot of fighting. It was a lot of clogged lanes and not so much beautiful basketball being played. Not a lot of movement, a lot of one-on-one ISOs and people just loading up. And the thing that I say is when you look at why the ratings are the way they are, some of them are macro factors that are happening. The fragmentation of television, right? Of options people have for entertainment. But another big part of it is, man, we are terrible at marketing our own game. We sit around acting like guys that played 50 years ago are so much better than guys that are playing today. I'm not here to compare eras, but I tell you what, in the NFL, I don't have to hear anyone telling me that Bart Starr would have killed in today's NFL. I don't have to hear anybody tell me in baseball that someone like Doc Gooden would be the best pitcher in baseball right now. People in other sports seem to allow eras to be eras. We all love Carl Lewis. What a great champion. No one out here saying Carl Lewis would smoke Noah Lyles. They don't have that conversation in any of those sports. We allow the past to be the past, the present to be the present, and move on. And in basketball, we're the only ones who are stuck telling this lie over and over again about like the past is so much better, the good old days. Guess what? The good old days never was in any regard.
Yeah. Wow. When you say that's a marketing problem, is it just the way that everybody surrounding the league talks about it that we've allowed this to become a thing, or is there something specific that the league itself is doing?
Well, I mean, I think we're all complicit. I'm complicit. Look, on Lebatard show today, they were talking about the story that we'll talk about next, which is about Joel Embiid being late to stuff. And I told a story about Joel Embiid being late to the second bus. And I said, where do they do that at? Like a young player always gets on the first bus. This is from back in the day. And then I remembered, like, oh yeah, even that rule doesn't exist anymore because now we got rookies taking the second bus over, which back in my day was unheard of. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. But as I say it, I know I sound like an old guy who's trying to tell everybody how it was so much better back then. Look, things are different, but they're not changing and they're not going back. So we got to make the best of what it is right now. And part of that is accepting, embracing, and believing. And a great example of us doing that is the conversation we just had about the NBA Cup. We embrace it, we accept it, we believe it, and it's becoming a reality. So that 5 years from now, we're all going to know that this is an important thing. It's because we didn't sit around whining and complaining about how much better when before we had these ugly floors or whatever.
Yeah. No, you're totally right. That was fun. Let's get back to Knecht real quick, because here is what Jazz coach Will Hardy had to say about him after the game. The Lakers were playing the Jazz.
It seemed like everybody in the gym knew that Dalton Knecht was going to shoot the next shot, with the exception of a few people. The problem was that those few people were on our team.
Zing! Got his ass!
This really makes me laugh. I also think, this is one of those cases where it's like, I don't know what kind of relationship Will Hardy has with his team. No matter what, this is one of those things where it's like sometimes holding people accountable with it, like making fun of them, because it's funny too. It's like using humor to be like, get your act together publicly, can be more motivating than like, yeah, we just didn't do a good job. Like someone sees that and they're like, oh, well, now I'll show you because you made fun of me. So we'll see how the Jazz play in their next game.
Charlotte, tell the truth. Tell me if I'm off here. If you took that exact phrasing that he used, but instead of Will Hardy saying it, it was Colin Jost, and with an over the shoulder with the score and Dalton Knecht going like this, like, would that not have played so funnily? Like it was written and delivered like it was Weekend Update right there.
Yeah. No, that was like comedic genius from Will Hardy. I'm sort of blown away by the perfection of that. Amin.
No, it was tremendous, and that's such a great idea. Someone should think about doing weekend update, but like for basketball to recap what happened over the weekend. But I digress. Seems like an easy one to execute, but no.
All right.
LeBron, Charlotte, I don't know if you know this. He was asked about Knecht's performance, and here's what he had to say.
Okay.
Dalton, LeBron, even dating back to last year, he talked pretty highly about Dalton. What did you see then, and what do you see now?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Same shit I said last year.
Yeah.
And everybody, on the internet called me a liar all the time. It's just all so, what am I now? I've been said it. I watched him. I watched Tennessee a lot. I did not think he was going to fall to us. I thought it would be impossible. I have no idea how that happened, but very grateful and very happy that he's here.
Yeah, Mark Medina was the one that posted the clip, but I also think Mark Medina was the one that asked the question. And also I think Mark Medina is the one that gave us that great Doc Rivers press conference laugh there. It wasn't that funny, Mark. But everyone's like, how cool was it that LeBron like recognized Dalton Knecht was so good back then? I'm like, how cool is it that LeBron finally recognized the joke that we've been saying for years now? Now the next one he needs to address, Charlotte, is have you ever read a book past page 1?
Okay, well, hopefully you'll have a chance to ask him that at some point this season. I mean, let's talk about what you mentioned earlier, that the Sixers are falling apart. They are 2-11. They didn't play yesterday, but Shams of ESPN reported that Kyle Lowry called for a team meeting. He's a vet. He's a good guy to do this. After the Sixers lost 106-89 to the Heat on Monday. And Tyrese Maxey, who's been out hurt but is coming back this week probably, he reportedly called out Embiid for being, quote, late to everything. Sam Amick and David Aldridge for The Athletic corroborated that this meeting happened. And they quote Maxey as saying, Joel, I love you, but it starts with you and your habits. What was your, and Embiid's lateness has been the subject of reporting for a while now. What was your reaction to this?
So that was kind of the thing I was alluding to earlier, is this story of Joel Embiid as a rookie. Like them holding the bus for him, the second bus. And I was like, well, wait, first of all, holding the bus, where does that ever happen? Second of all, the second bus, like why is he even on the second bus? He should be on the first bus. And so, he's a great player. I'm not here to disparage him or his work ethic or anything like that. But I am here to say that when you allow young players, rookies, to come in and you treat them a certain way, you allow them latitudes a certain way, no matter how great they are, that becomes their new normal, right? And that's why I'm always team low. You go hard on your rookies. I don't care if he's your best player. I don't care if he was the number 1 overall pick and everything. Like, you have to show them like this is how we do things, because it's too late. You can't let the horse back onto the wagon or into the stable afterwards. Once it's out, it's out. And so Joel, he may not think it's a big deal, but it is, because this is a team environment. It's not an individual thing, and he's got to conform to that. And somewhere Marcus Hayes is kind of like patting himself on the back and saying, see, you kind of made my point.
I mean, I think too, what I love that Tyrese Maxey, who's a younger player on this team, took it upon himself to hold Embiid accountable. They allegedly have not allegedly, they have a good relationship. He said, I love you. Yeah. And I think that sometimes when you have someone who is not giving their all in a way that the other team can feel, I think also Embiid's public comments about after he signed his contract saying, well, I'm not going to play any more back-to-backs. It's this frustration can build where you're like, come on, man. Like, we are all trying to do something here, and you are a key part of it, and you are not doing the bare minimum, which is showing up on time and caring. And so, I know that Embiid said he wanted to be coached harder, and the coaches said that they wanted more from, and it seems like there's a lot of miscommunication, but I think that this is just a very mature moment and a cool leadership moment from Maxey to call out a superstar and say, you have to pull your weight here. You show up on time.
Yeah. And also the reporting from everybody is that this was not Maxey stepping out of his lane. Right. He has been vocal. He has been looked at as a leader, and he held Joel Embiid accountable, because that's the relationship he and Embiid have with each other, holding each other accountable, right. Which, by the way, that happens a lot where people were like, you're the one who holds people accountable. It happens a lot more often than people think. I'll give you another name who's nowhere near as accomplished as Tyrese Maxey, Thanasis Antetokounmpo. One of his biggest values to the Bucks over the last few years was he was the guy that would call out Giannis when Giannis was full of it or Giannis wasn't listening to good advice. Thanasis was the guy who would step up and would say something, and Giannis listens to Thanasis. So this isn't rare or unheard of in the NBA where you're like, he's calling out the MVP. Yeah, it happens because someone has to in order for this thing to work. We all got to be accountable.
Yeah, incredibly valuable in a player. All right, when we come back, prop a slot.
What?
It's hard to say. Welcome back to Oddball. Amin, it's time for one of our new DraftKings games, Prop a Slot. Very difficult to say, but very fun to play, and that rhymed.
It's like if you're a British, it's a proper slot, isn't it? It's a proper slot.
Yeah, okay, sure. It's presented by DraftKings. Stay tuned because you'll hear more about DraftKings and all it has to offer throughout the show. DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Hell yeah.
Okay, I mean, you know the rules. The slot machine will generate a real DraftKings prop bet from tonight's game. And if we get to the third spin, we have to take that one. We can take the first or second. So let's see what this first spin is.
You know what I love as we go to the first spin here? In our rundown, it actually says TBD. We don't know what it is. So
I
here we
know.
go.
I'm excited.
Okay, it looks like Mikal Bridges over on points.
Oh,
what's the
wow.
line? 15.5 points. 15.5 points for Mikal Bridges. Minus 110 are the odds going. It's Knicks at Suns tonight. It's a revenge game for Mikal because remember, that's where he started his NBA career. He was drafted by the Sixers and traded on a draft night deal to Phoenix, who then traded him away to get Kevin Durant. Mikal's coming off of an 0 for 4 3-point shooting night on Monday. We're looking for him to rebound from deep. Charlotte, do you like this bet? Over 15.5 for Mikal.
I don't hate it, but I don't know if I like it as much as what the second one's going to be. What do you think?
I think I like it. KD is still out. The Knicks
right.
Like Beal's also like day to day.
Okay, let's take it. Let's take it. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's rock with this.
We locked in. Quick question for you, Charlotte. Who do you think wins? The Knicks are 8-6. Have they turned a corner?
I feel like with KD and Beal out, the other guys, it's a lot for them to carry. I think that the Knicks are starting to find a rhythm that we had talked about them needing to find. I'll go with the Knicks on this one. I'm not saying that with a whole lot of conviction, which is very bad for sports television.
Yeah, I was going to say, the Knicks easily. No KD, no Beal, no problem. But then I remember the Suns almost beat the Timberwolves with no KD and no Beal. Also, the freaking Memphis Grizzlies lost to Denver without Jokic. How? They have the worst offense in NBA history when Jokic doesn't play. Never mind.
We literally had a bet in case Jokic, if it was a hedging. We had a whole system and it still didn't work. It still backfired our hot streak.
The other one lost too. I'm curious though, Charlotte. We're locked in on this. We both like this bet. But what would have happened if we spun again? Let's see what the second prop bet would have been.
I really love this. The suspense as we see what's going to happen.
Let's see. I need a
Garland
zoom in.
over assists.
Okay. What's the line?
So it would have been over 6.5 assists at minus 125. The Cavs get a banged up Pelicans team at home in Cleveland. And we already talked about how Garland totally screwed everything up against the Celtics. So I guess if the shot isn't falling, he could shift to focusing on trying to get other people the ball. He's gone over this number in over half of his games this month, but I like our Mikal Bridges bet better than this because I feel like coming off of that game with travel and everything, I don't know that
the back-to-backs definitely takes some wind out of the sails. Garland's been really good with the playmaking this this season. He had 7 last night against the Celtics. So
true.
I would have been comfortable with this one, but not as comfortable as the Mikal Bridges one.
Okay, real quick, the last one that we could have taken that we didn't take. Spin to win.
The sound
very impressive on our production team's part, by the way.
It's Dyson Daniels. He looks a lot more tan there. Wow, he's been out in the sun. Okay, Dyson Daniels over 2.5 steals tonight, and that's minus 125. Charlotte, he's leading the league in steals with like well over 3 steals a game.
I did not know that.
And he's got one of the best nicknames in hoops right now. They call him the Great Barrier Thief. because he's Australian.
Really good.
Great barrier.
Really good.
But 2.5 steals is a lot.
Against the Warriors? No, I think we did the right thing.
Yep.
Mikal Bridges over 15.5 points. We'll check back in later. Bye.
Gordon is the GOAT. He's the GOAT.